That's when there's this need or urgency to identify who they are and contact them. But I congratulate Councilman Nyors for taking the effort to really, it's something we've talked about for many years, to take the time to redraft this and to make it more manageable. Yeah.
Just one suggestion. I think the old Code of Ethics said that only employees, and I guess you guys are employees, are allowed to file to ask for an ethics opinion. And so nobody else in the town of Rye can ask for an ethics question or have that board sit and deliberate on an ethics question. And I know there's issues as to whether you should and you shouldn't. You can go back and forth. I don't see the town board as being a big, at least now, a big ethics question. But I would recommend that you allow people not employees of the town to be able to challenge, to ask the ethics questions for the elected and employees, because sometimes they know the question, that's all private anyway, the whole ethics thing. So it's and hopefully it'll be used correctly as it is used in Rye Brook, where if you, a sitting board member, has a question about whether you can vote on something or not, you ask the ethics board before you take the vote, not after. That's usually that's how it's used a lot in Rye Brook. Also, I'd like to congratulate Supervisor Carvin for doing his little part in keeping the budget down by, again, not taking a salary. And I think, what is it, $17,000?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry about that, Joe. but
well, we promised
you've made your promise, and you've kept your promise, and that's a rare thing with politicians. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the promise is to not take the salary until we get the town tax down to zero. So we're still working hard to get there. Great. Okay, any other comments from the public? All right, thank you. So, Crawford Park policy. Mr. Nowotny?
Okay. By now, perhaps you've had a chance to review the various pieces of documentation we've given you. The genesis of requesting a policy is when we came into this position, there really was no written policy in terms of utilization. All we had was what I would call the event contract document and what I would call a litany of past practice. We've been evolving as much as we can with the past practice. But what we're finding now, as you look at the activity reports, that we are reaching capacity at this particular stage. We have not raised any rates in the 3 years we've been here. We have not made any substantive policy changes in terms of utilization of the park. And what we've seen, though, is that the demand for park space, park time, park facilities has increased exponentially. If you look at the year-to-date numbers that you have, you'll see what I'm talking about. So what we tried to do was we tried to then come together and talk about how can we manage the park facilities. Our feeling was that, one, price was certainly a way to manage the elasticity of use. We are under most communities and most commercial establishments. We have a very attractive facility. People are really coming in droves. We're turning them away. So we also then wanted to look at hours of operation. We wanted to look at how we wanted to run the park. For example, we've been using the park on holidays. That's put a tremendous amount of pressure on our staff. We'd like to also look at controlling the evening hours of utilization, particularly outside, because that's impacting the neighborhood, and we've had complaints from the neighbors. So what we've given you here is all of those kinds of things. If you look at the spreadsheet, which is called page 1, we're asking for seasonality. And we want to try and put some outdoor seasonality in there from April 1st to October 31st. Again, we want to limit it for holidays. We are asking for a couple of extra weeks in the springtime to see if we can't get the grass to mature a little bit before the soccer players and the baseball players and so forth get out on the fields. If you look at the hours of operation, we're also trying to say we're going to close down operations at dusk. Dusk in the summertime is more or less 9 o'clock when it starts to get dark. We've been running events there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and frankly, we think that there's some issues having outdoor events at that time of night on a Saturday night or on a Sunday night. So we're asking you to take a look at these times. We're recommending, for example, that you consider an alcohol use policy, and we've included a sample alcohol use policy in the packet. I want to thank Councilman Gelfarb. He's gone through the revised licensing agreement for the use of the facilities. He's helped us tremendously in terms of wording. So we have a revised licensing agreement, and we're also asking for fee increases, both to actual use of the facility as well as increases in terms of the security deposit. So, for example, for the mansion, where right now the mansion fee is $575 for 5 hours, we're asking to have that fee increased to $750 for 5 hours. Our mansion deposit is $150 right now. We're asking to raise that to $250. When you look at the pavilion costing, we have the same approach, although there's much less risk of damage, so we're saying that the security deposit for a pavilion event should only be $150, which is what it is today. But we are looking to change the structure of the fees for the pavilion. To give you an example, let's just say you had a 4-hour party at the pavilion. Right now, the fee structure is $170 plus $25 per hour. So you would pay for a 4-hour party $270. What we're talking about is asking you to look at the pavilion cost as $75 an hour with a 3-hour minimum. So at that particular point, you could have a small party. For example, we see a lot of families having birthday parties for kids. They can have a party there for approximately 2 or 3 hours and pay only $225, for example. That would be a reduction for those kinds of events. But it would be an increase in the overall fee structure. If you had a 4-hour party, it would be $300. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We're also looking at field utilization and saying we'd like to see a fee of $30 per hour with a 2-hour minimum. That's
Are we currently charging?
Excuse me?
Are we currently charging for the use of the soccer fields?
Yes, currently we're charging $30 for 2 hours.
So you're not changed?
Well, we're saying we want $30 per hour as opposed to $30 for 2 hours. Okay, and then lastly, we have the groups, if you will. I think in prior information we've provided you with a list of activity over the last couple of years. What we're talking about is the nonprofit utilization, and we're asking you to consider some of that in the process. Nonprofit utilization runs anywhere from the Kiwanis Club having a picnic. We have a variety of church picnics up there.
So
we have fundraisers for the Clay Arts Center, for the Portchester Library, for the band, for, et cetera.
So currently we, as my understanding, we just charge the maintenance fee?
Currently, we charge them nothing if they give us 2 items. In order for a event, for example, to be held at Crawford Park free of charge, what we have been doing, again, this is what we've inherited. We ask for a 501c3 letter, which is the official IRS letter designating that group as a nonprofit 501c3 organization. And we also ask for an appropriate insurance certificate which indemnifies the town and names the town as an additional insured. If a group is located within the confines of the town of Rye, that's within the town of Rye borders, they have been getting free access to Crawford Park. We have not charged any of the facilities. We have Portchester
We're currently charging for we have to hire somebody for those events. We're not charging for that person.
Oh, we have all kinds of charges. We have waste disposal.
No.
No, we're not charging for that person. We're not charging any fees at all.
So we're absorbing the cost of those functions.
Exactly.
Okay. And what's your proposal here?
Well, what we're proposing here is we had proposed a 50% discount, but also if you look at the spreadsheet, we gave you a cost analysis. As best we could assemble it, we tried to identify, for example, all of the pay rates for both our part-timers and full-timers, our benefits cost for the full-timers that qualify. We put in all of our operating costs, be it maintenance costs, painting, sprinkler repair, etc. And at the bottom, you will see that, to give you an example, depending on how you quantify a day, all right, because again, the days are a tough call. Saturday, for example, the park runs from roughly about 7:30 in the morning until midnight on a typical Saturday.
Okay, comments from the board?
Can I ask you a question on this? You have on here on the second person under employees for medical benefits is only $1,100.
That employee has opted out of medical benefits. We have an opt-out option. 3 employees in the town have selected an opt-out option. What they get is they get $1,500 for basically opting out. Typically, the spouse has a better medical plan, so they don't want to pay the premiums. The reason that it's more than $1,500 is we also added in the life insurance premium for that individual because we still have group life insurance. You don't opt out of group life.
I think we should talk about that opting out thing, too. Is that in our policy?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Never mind, we don't need to.
So again, if you wanted to look at hourly...
But Bishop,
Yes.
in the interest of moving on, let's get questions from the board, and then let's move forward with this.
Bishop, have you compared some of the proposed rates to some of our neighboring facilities and what they charge for various usage?
Yes. Right now, for example, the Pasilipos Center, I think, is $685 for a 4-hour event.
So the proposed rates are comparable?
Yeah, they're very comparable. The church right next door here, the Episcopal Church, they start at $1,000 for their particular space.
Okay. The center is how much?
Excuse me?
How much is the facility?
$685 for 4 hours. And Pasilipos Center closes at 10 o'clock.
You know, one thing to consider, to actually consider, is to have different prices at different times. I mean, that's really not confusing. It really is.
Weekends.
The most sense.
It's doable. Our biggest pressure is, in fact, Saturday. I mean, Saturdays fill up probably 6 months in advance.
How do you do on weeknights in the summer?
Weeknights are weak.
So they not really matter.
Typically, during the week, for example, you have other nonprofit groups that are in there. The Village Singers are in there rehearsing for free. The Council of the Arts is in there rehearsing for free. The Scene Stealers is rehearsing for free.
Are we turning away people on Saturday nights?
Absolutely.
Well, that's kind of very good evidence that you're charging. There's no better evidence that you're charging too little.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we want to raise the rate.
Yeah, it's really congestion pricing. That's what we need.
Looking at this licensing agreement, it looks fairly thorough. I would just like to make one suggestion, and that is to separate the fee schedule, if you will, from the licensing agreement. And you can refer to that as an attachment or as a fee schedule, such that you can maintain the licensing agreement in whole, and if we decide to change the fees at any particular time, that would be on a separate fee schedule.
Sure, that could easily be an addendum A or something like that. Absolutely.
Well, I think the only thing that we really need to talk about is the last thing, as far as what we want to do with the meetings.